You are watching Skepticom. Here's Rob.
Yes, this is Skepticom, and I am Rob. And this episode is called, Why Would Any Christian Ever Vote for Trump? And I would really like to answer that question completely. I don't want to go too deep because I'm trying to keep this video short. But just to clarify why I'm answering this question, I have a Democrat friend who posed it to me. And the way the question came across was something like this. I know you don't like socialism, but I also know that you don't like evil. So how could you vote for Trump? And so that's a question that I want to answer. And the first part of the answer goes like this. I reject that premise outright. I do not agree with that premise that Trump is evil. He is a blowhard. He's a loose cannon. He says inappropriate things on Twitter. He's rude. But that doesn't necessarily make a person evil. And so what I would like to say is those of us who are Christians, we hold Christian values, but when it comes to politics, we have to keep an open mind. I would have to say that if you're trying to vote for somebody who's exuding Christian values, you're not going to get very far. That's just the way things are. It is a real cage match out there in the political world. And so we're looking for a fighter. We watched President Bush get dragged across cactus, figuratively speaking, by the media and by the Democrats, and he did very little to contest that. Then he wound up getting sullied, and his administration is now looked on as a joke. Now, it's not all without merit. There were a lot of things about the Bush administration that were a little goofy, but at the time, I remember thinking, we're taking this poor guy and we're throwing him out on the field of battle, and he is surrounded by wolves and heaven knows what else, to continue the analogy. I'm just going to leave it at wolves. And we're going to sit here and watch him try to make his way across that field and get chewed to pieces and get his flanks torn off of his body by all of these wolves. And that's basically what happened. And nobody really fought for him, and he didn't fight much for himself. And so I would have to say that when it comes to politics, we as Christians, there's just no way that we can insist that somebody be of super high moral character and never do anything mean or inappropriate, because ultimately when there's a cage match going on, there's going to be a lot of rotten punches thrown and there's going to be blood spilled, and that's just the way it is. And the only choice that we have is to sit out. We're not going to sit out. That would be silly. And so we want to vote for a fighter. And now here we have Trump, and Trump is taking it right to the people who made life miserable for Bush. He knows how to fight back. He knows how to counterpunch. We like this. I'm starting to get excited about things, and I don't want to take it too far, but I would like to say we like it when he goes out there and he fights, because we're tired of seeing the nasty tactics of the left. And I'm just going to exemplify those nasty tactics very quickly. I'm going to try to go through the short version of this. There might be another video when I expound on these things, but these are pretty simple things to document. So let's start with the confirmation of Supreme Court justices. We can take this all the way back to Robert Bork, and I think that was the late 80s. Robert Bork was nominated for the Supreme Court to be a justice, and by the time the Democrats got through with him, they had sullied his name so badly that he was simply thrown off. Now, I don't know exactly all of the details about this, but I know that they lied about him. I'll bring that up later, and that he did not make it. Now, let's jump ahead to Clarence Thomas. This would have been, oh boy, you know what? I can't remember what year Clarence Thomas was nominated. The Democrats, led, by the way, by Joe Biden, dragged Clarence Thomas through the mud so badly. Now, he did make it onto the Supreme Court, but they made sure and sullied him so badly by the time he got there. He himself called it a high-tech lynching, what they put him through. And his name was sullied in ways that may never be recoverable, although he is on the Supreme Court, thankfully. And then finally, we're going to get to strike three. That's two. Now, here comes the third one, and that is Brett Kavanaugh. the Democrats turned that entire hearing into a circus. There were people screaming and yelling and pounding on the doors and jumping around and raising all kinds of cane. There was no mention of the lady they dragged in to bear false witness against him to falsely testify. But when they finally dragged her in after their circus didn't work, they turned it into just a disgrace of a hearing, and they charged him with things that he had never done. There were no corroborating witnesses for that lady, and there were plenty of people who said that none of that could have happened. So I'm going to say that's 3 strikes on the Supreme Court thing. And just to provide a contrast, when Barack Obama was the president, he nominated 2 people, as far as I recall, for Supreme Court justices, and one of them was Sonia Sotomayor, and the other one was Elena Kagan. Now, we put them through hearings, but at no point did we turn the entire process into a circus. When I say we, since I'm a conservative, I'm talking about the Republican Party. Did not turn it into a circus, did not drag in false witnesses, did not sully their reputations. They simply asked them questions and put them through. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I know it didn't turn into a circus for either of those people. Now, don't you think that if the Republicans had wanted to, they could have dug up something nasty, or they could have brought in false witnesses? Yeah, that's what you guys did 3 times in a row. So let's just say that I'm tired of watching our side get beat up by a bunch of bullies. 3 strikes. And but then when it's our turn to do it, we don't treat you that way. And so that would be my first case. And then the second case goes back to Robert Bork for the first example, and that is, I just read this on Wikipedia recently. I was reading about Robert Bork, and it said that Ted Kennedy told vicious lies about him. And then later, when he was asked about it, and he was confronted with the fact that you know what you said was a lie, he said, yeah, but it worked, didn't it? And I'm going to give you another example of that exact same thing. And it was Harry Reid when he was talking about Mitt Romney. He said Mitt Romney didn't even pay his taxes. And somebody confronted him and said, how do you know that? You don't have any evidence. And he just continued to make the charge. You don't have any evidence. And later, after the election was over and Barack Obama had won, a particular reporter asked him about it and said, you said those things and you had no proof of it whatsoever. And his answer was, yeah, but it worked, didn't it? Same thing Kennedy said about Bork. So I'm going to say I'm tired of watching our side get beat and lied about by people who are so vicious that they will pull those kind of tactics. And I am glad to support a president that will fight back against this stuff. Now, I'm going to move on to another point, and that is, just to show that I'm not just voting against what I don't like, let me just tell you a few things that I'm voting for. First, there's the military. Seems like when Democrats get in office, they always want to chop the military off at the knees and dump it into the sewer. The reason for having a strong military is so that you never have to use it. One of the things that Democrats hated most about Bush was that he got us into 2 wars. Trump hasn't gotten us into any wars. If anything, he's pulling people back. But he keeps our military strong so that we stay out of wars. I don't think most people understand, especially Democrats, just do not understand the preventive force that is. Second, appropriately, the Second Amendment. That is a pet issue for me, the right to keep and bear arms. Doesn't seem to me that Democrats understand the importance of that one at all. I'm going to do a show on it at some point, but right now, suffice to say, the Second Amendment is huge for me, and I believe Trump stands for it, and I believe the Democrats will trash it. Okay, next we have the economy. Unemployment was pathetic under Obama and Biden. Trump has cut unemployment, especially for African Americans and for Hispanics. Good heavens, he's got the best numbers in like 20 or 30 years, maybe more than that. And then we've got taxes. Democrats always raise them. Trump's lowering them. Sorry, but that's what I'm for. Next, a strong standing with Israel. I will go into that in another show, why I think that is so important, but I think our relationship with Israel is huge. He moved the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem. That was a big deal for them. And then 2 Supreme Court justices already, with a 3rd possibly to come. As I record this, they're having hearings for the 3rd one. Moving on, most people don't know this, but Trump has been nominated for 3 Nobel Peace Prizes, and there's a reason for it. It's because he has brokered 3 very important deals over in the Middle East. Most presidents have no luck over there. Trump has managed to broker a peace treaty, I think it was, between Israel and the UAE, that's the United Arab Emirates. He brokered another one between Israel and Bahrain. I'm doing my best to pronounce it, folks. And finally, the 3rd Nobel Peace Prize nomination was for a deal he brokered between Serbia and Kosovo. That was the war that was fought under Clinton. Clinton sent troops over there. I'm not blaming the war on him, but Clinton sent American troops over because there was a huge blow-up between Serbia and Kosovo, and Trump has now brokered a peace deal between them. That's his 3rd nomination for a Nobel Peace Prize. Then there's the wall. Don't you dare call me a racist. My reasons for wanting the wall up are national security and our economy, and we cannot sustain people flooding across the borders. That's all I'm going to say for right now, but I'm happy with the progress on the wall. It's not what I had hoped for, but it's done pretty good. So those are just a few of the many reasons that I am really strong on Trump. And I think one of the things that impresses me most is that he did that while he was being dragged through the Mueller investigation, and he was being dragged through an impeachment, both of which produced nothing because there was nothing there, folks. We'll talk about that later. Mueller knew the whole time. He's either so incompetent that he didn't even know that there was nothing there, or he is so malicious, so criminal, I'm talking about Mueller, that he continued that investigation knowing full well there was nothing there. And when he got through with it, he had this miserable disgrace of a report that he issued that had nothing in it. It's a throwaway. This is ridiculous, folks. This is why I like Trump, because he fights against that. Now, I'm going to bring up a principle here, and that is, as a Christian, I do not take pleasure in the downfall of my enemies. When bin Laden died, when Castro died, those are evil guys right there. But I did not take pleasure in their deaths. I can't say that I'm so super sorry that they're gone, but I don't go dancing around about stuff like that. However, when a bully gets a backhanded slap, sometimes it brings a smile to my face, just like it does anybody who's looking for some sense of justice. Because when you see the bully attacking, and I've done plenty to tell you the bully attacks that piss me off, from the Supreme Court justice nominations and the horrible way that they're treated by Democrats, to the lies that they tell as though the ends justify the means. There's a dangerous philosophy right there. And these lies, by the way, are not being told by low-grade chumps. We're talking about Kennedy, who was a senator in high standing in your party, and then there was Harry Reid, who was the Senate Majority Leader, lying on the floor of the Senate and has to pay no price for it. I'm sorry, but I have a sense of justice just like anybody does, and I want to see people prosecuted for stuff like that. And I'm glad to have Trump in office where he can give the media and the Democrats a backhanded slap every once in a while. I got to say, I take a little bit of pleasure in that. It's not watching the downfall or something tragic happened to anybody. It's simply watching a little bit of justice get served with the back of a hand. Okay, figuratively, of course. All right, moving on. I'm just going to wrap this up, and I'm going to say I've given plenty of reasons why I am voting for Trump, and then there's the list of reasons why I'm angry with Democrats, and it doesn't bother me one bit to watch Trump slap the media around a little bit and slap the Democrats around a little bit. If that sounds unchristian to you, well, here I am. I am a Christian, and that's how I see it. I think I enumerated a lot of good points on both sides of the issue, and I hope that it will at least help some people to understand why a Christian would ever vote for Trump.